How's it going, everyone? Welcome or welcome back to the channel. So, like any other week, if you want a chance of one of your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below, and I'll try to answer each and every question. So, with that being said, let's go ahead and get started with the first question of the week, and it is: what are some things you should look for short term and long term after hitting a pothole? So, if you live in an area like I do here, potholes are almost unavoidable. It's almost like you have to choose: should I hit this one or that one? If you live in an area where potholes aren't an issue, that is great. But anywhere closer to like a bigger city, especially if it snows, there's salt and brine, chances are potholes will arise and you have to deal with these things almost on a daily basis. So some things to look for is obviously after immediately hitting a pothole, does the steering wheel look off? Does it feel off? Is there a stiffer feeling? Is the car extra bouncy and stuff like that? Sometimes when you hit a decent enough pothole, you may not experience a wheel bearing noise for maybe a couple days after, a couple weeks after, or even a couple months after. And I see this a lot after doing insurance jobs. So a lot of times these insurance companies don't want to do anything that is not either audibly noticeable or visually noticeable, whether it be by eye or in the alignment machine. So sometimes these issues do arise after the fact, and the initial issue was either that pothole or that accident or whatever the car was in. So just things to notice for and look out for. So everything looks okay. You may want to do an alignment. Chances are it probably got thrown out of alignment if it was a decent enough pothole. Also take that chance to take a look at struts, bushings, links, tie rod ends. Make sure nothing was either bent, compromised, broken, came loose, things of that nature. If it's driving fine, maybe you want to leave it alone. But next time you bring it into the repair shop, just tell the technician or the mechanic, hey, I hit a pothole that concerned me a couple weeks back, a month ago or so. Just take a look at it. If anything seems, out of the ordinary, fine. Although this may open up Pandora's box for him to say like, hey, he has an issue, let's go ahead and replace X, Y, and Z. So at that point, if he or she recommends something, ask why, what's his reasoning? Is something leaking? Is something bent? Is something out of shape? Whatever the case may be, maybe there is an issue, maybe there isn't, but don't get taken advantage of either. Anytime something is recommended to you, ask the reason why. Is it because of mileage? Is it because there's a leak? Again, whatever fill in the blank in situation may be. So you're treated fairly. If it needs it, great. If it doesn't need it, you want to make sure you aren't being taken advantage of. So hopefully that answers the question for you. Okay, so the next question is for the modified guys. Will a dealer take note of modifications? And let's say you're there just for an oil change, but you have X, Y, and Z modifications. Will they take note of that, put it in the system, or whatnot? Chances are they're not. We want it, my dealer, unless if it's something that's like crazy out there and the car is like on air suspension. We may make a small note that the vehicle is on air suspension. Additionally, when we bring in these vehicles for check-in, there is images that are taken in pictures. So if something does come up in the future and we take these pictures, sometimes customers say, hey, this dent wasn't there, this scratch wasn't there. And that's to kind of protect us. We take pictures of the mileage, all that good stuff. So we may use those in the future. Sometimes people say, well, my windshield has a crack and before it didn't. And here we are, here's your pictures. Either it was there or it wasn't. And we can address the problem, correctly. Did it happen in the shop or did it not? Did it come in that way? So things of that nature. Additionally, we do multi-point video inspections. So although we may not document it, if there is a documentation in the form of a video, doesn't mean we're going to use it against you. If your car is lowered and you happen to have some sort of a transmission issue, obviously it's not relatable, and it's not what caused your transmission to go bad. So in any case where something goes wrong and a vehicle is modified and they try to use that against you, they have to prove that's what actually caused the issue. If they can't prove that, then they can't use that against you, no matter how they try to twist and turn their words or whatnot. Now, if you have extended wheel studs and somebody removed the hub and replaced it, didn't do it correctly, and your wheel bearing went bad, then that is obviously something that could be used against you. But in most cases, we don't document anything unless if, again, something extremely modified. There's like a ton of wiring and you came in for a wiring issue that was added to the car, and that wiring issue may or may not be causing your concern. We're surely going to at least note it that the wiring was added, it was modified, whatnot, in that case, whether it be warranty or not, just to protect us and everybody's kind of on the same page, because we work on a lot of cars, and chances are if your car were to come back in 3, 4, 5 months, we're not going to remember what it was there for that previous visit. So hopefully that answers this question. Okay, so the next question is, will dealers use outside documentation from a different shop, or even your own personal scan tool for warranty diags and repairs? And I'll say right off the bat that no, absolutely not. That's not going to be accepted by either me or American Honda. Now, chances are the car may have an issue, which is great. But if you do have an issue, just pull the code. Do not delete the code and think that you're doing something good, unless if it's something, if you unplug something and then you turn on ignition, obviously it's going to set a code for an open circuit or whatnot. So in that case, then sure. But if the car just happened to throw a code, you didn't do anything out of the norm to it, please do not delete that code, because it has data stored in there that we can use for our purposes. Now, a code pulling is not a diagnosis. That's just a direction for us to start looking in that specific area. Now, sometimes one code can set off multiple codes, especially in these newer cars. So again, you keep that data there. If you happen to bring it to an outside mechanic and he says, say, just clear the light, whatnot, at that point, you can't bring it to us if it doesn't have a code, because we're not going to be able to have anything to go based off of that. Honda's not going to take an outside shop's data as a accepted warranty documentation on our end. So if the car's out of warranty, we may use that as a reference, even if it's under warranty, just as a guide. But again, there could be some sort of malpractice issue going on here, where something funny went on, or it really depends. So if you have an issue, please do yourself a favor, do us a favor, don't query the codes and let us do our job. And again, a code is not a diagnosis. It's just a direction that we get to go based off of that code. And sometimes multiple codes could, or one code could lead to multiple issues in that vehicle, assuming it's going to throw a ton of lights, but it's really usually only one issue. So if you have a code, do yourself a favor, don't clear it, bring it to us, let us do our job. Again, if you have it documented, great, that's a direction that we could go off of. But in especially the form of a warranty repair, we're going to have the proper repair. So A, we have something to see and look at some data, and B, submit that to Honda so the warranty claim gets approved and doesn't get denied and kicked back, and it falls back on us. So hopefully that answers this question for you. Okay, so this next question is, my car is due for a recall. In this situation, it's the TLX Type S for the PGMFI software update. So the question is, should I return my car back to stock and remove the JB4 from the vehicle? So this car does have a JB4, which is to modify and alter the car's fuel and timing and boost pressure and stuff like that. So should you remove the JB4? Absolutely. Don't just unplug and remove everything from the car, because again, anytime you start messing with the software of the ECU, that could be a big red flag for a technician and for future issues. Again, not that we're going to hold that against you in the future if your wheel bearing happens to go bad and you had JB4, but if you happen to have an engine issue, they can surely try to use that against you. So do yourself a favor, unplug everything, remove that from the car. As far as other, modifications, if it's lowered, if you have like a downpipe or something like that, you could still do the software update. That's not going to affect anything. If it's different wheels, bolt-ons, whatever, that's not going to affect anything as far as that recall goes. Now, if it's something that may interfere with the recall, like we spoke about last week, at that point, you may either ask to remove that item, or be paid for them to remove it to do the update or the recall or whatnot. And then they can put it back after they're done with the recall. That's entirely between you and your dealer or your service department at that point. It really depends on the situation, but anything with modifying the ECU, or in some cases the TCU for different manufacturing stuff, return all that stuff back to stock, bring it to your dealer, have them do what they got to do, and then put it back on afterwards. So hopefully that answers the question for you. All right, so last but not least, question of the week. And once again, if you want a chance of one of your questions being answered, make sure you drop a comment down below. And the next question is, what are my thoughts on the tariffs along the lines of sales, parts sales, and service? So I'm gonna go ahead and say that we're not sure how this is all going to play out long term. There may be some sort of agreement or agreements that alter this and changes this almost on a weekly basis. So maybe it sticks, maybe it doesn't. Who knows? Manufacturers are surely trying to address this in any way possible. So this is how I see it potentially playing out. So let's say, and this is all hypothetical, guys. Don't come at me with all these numbers and stuff. This is the hypothetical situation here. Let's say X car is going to cost 5 grand more, just hypothetically speaking. So, what is the average person, in my opinion, going to be doing? So, if you could get X car for 5 grand more, you're going to strictly look at a competitor that is not affected by the tariff, if there is one. So, if there's a competitor that's not affected by the tariff, I think that a lot of people are going to try to jump to the competitor because, let's all be honest, we're going to try to save as much money as possible. Now, what happens here? That increases demand on X car not affected by tariff or not as much. And, I think the sales at that point will start to play some funny games and say, well, if you're paying for 5 grand extra on this car, there's no reason I can't mark up this car that's not affected by the tariff by 2 grand, 3 grand, let's say. At the end of the day, you're still saving money. So a lot of games, I believe, are going to be played here. We also have to look at the financial part of things as far as financing. So maybe you'll pay less for X car not affected by tariff, or maybe they'll try to tack on an extra 1% or so once it comes to the financing part. Same thing will go for the used car market. Now, obviously, tariffs won't directly affect them, but they will because maybe people are going to try to avoid buying new cars, right? So what's that's going to do? That's going to increase a demand on old cars or used cars. And essentially, the price of those will probably go up because people are avoiding the tariff cars and essentially going to the used market. So it's going to be an increase in supply or in demand. And then at that point, those salesmen can say, all right, well, we could charge a little bit more because at the end of the day, there's more demand for these cars. So we're going to try to make as much as possible. Same things goes for parts. We're not sure exactly what parts will or will not be affected, but doesn't mean that the parts department can't start playing some games either, right? So unless if it's savvy people like yourselves, we could go online and compare one store to the other. Let's say you go to your local dealer and they want to mark up everything, let's just say 10% or so, and they're going to use the tariffs as an excuse. So again, most people are just going to the dealer and just going to go buy at their local dealer. Some people are going to look online and try to save as much as possible, compare from X store to Y store and whatnot. And that is great, and that's probably what you should do so you don't get taken advantage of. I kind of see the same thing happening as service. So when you go into service, they're going to say, well, everything's more expensive now, so we're going to raise our labor rate for X, Y, and Z reasons. Let's just say it's tariffs here, even though it didn't directly affect the labor department for the service at that point. But, again, it depends on the dealer, the situation. I think surely some dealers will try to take advantage of the situation saying, well, hey, you can't afford a new car because it's 5, 6, 7, 10 grand more. You have to maintain yours. So we're going to charge you extra to maintain that just because we want to. Maybe some dealers won't, maybe some dealers will. As far as my dealer goes, so far, nothing has changed on a labor rate of things. So hopefully, in my opinion, I think if dealers across the board do start to raise their prices, that we should stay at our prices and, make our money, our difference up in volume versus trying to get more out of each customer. I think that's a better game plan, in my opinion. Not saying that's going to happen or not going to happen. That's how I would approach it if I was, in charge of the stuff. But obviously, I'm not. I just turn wrenches and I fix the cars, get them in, get them out. So that's my part of the job here. But yeah, I can see whether these vehicles and parts and service departments are directly affected or not by these tariffs. I can surely see a lot of funny stuff going on, and just be, do your research, be educated before going into these places, do your homework, and don't get taken advantage of. Just try to be as vigilant as possible. And again, just try to keep up with the stuff. It's changing constantly all the time. And again, maybe agreements will be met. Maybe they'll be dropped a little bit. Who knows? This is an ever-evolving situation here. So let's go ahead and see what happens in the long run. But as of now, this is what seems to be happening. So we'll kind of see how it all plays down the road. Maybe 6 months down the road, a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10, whatever. We'll see what happens going down the road here. So hopefully that answers this question for you, and I'll catch everyone on the next one.